If you love the West Tigers as much as we do, and that's an awful lot, you're welcome to come and join us in our discussions on the West Tigers podcast forum. Our forum is the #1 forum for West Tigers fans to talk everything West Tigers. westtigerspodcast.com.au/forum. We hope to see you there soon.
It's the West Tigers podcast, and unfortunately, a post-defeat edition of the podcast. Eddie, Steve, and Gary are with us this evening on a Tuesday night, a rare Tuesday night recording. I thought we'd start off with the one-word submissions from the West Tigers podcast forum following the loss to the Eels at CommBank Stadium. And firstly, I've got Nick's, which I thought was a good one, but I'm not going to go into the details further. He just said, and obviously this is Nick from the podcast, but Nick said his word tonight was going to be crucified. The West Tigers were crucified in a number of different ways over the Easter break. Kiwi Tigers' word was deflating. Redmond said, well, I don't really want to repeat Redmond's because we like to keep it at a certain standard, but basically if you remember the Graham Kennedy crow call, then that would do it for Redmond. That was the word. Jedi Tigers' word was DCE, saying swap Galvin for Daly Cherry Evans. Tigersman, snaky. I was hoping we'd climb the ladder, but we landed on a snake. Spannerman's word was Jerome. Where is he when we need him? Nat Mac 78's submission was composure. We didn't show any. Tigertown SFS. Now, I did take an unofficial word from one of Tigertown SFS's posts on the West Tigers podcast forum, and that was kick. It was a kick in the guts, and makes me question if anything has really changed. Tigertown SFS's official one-word submission was setback. Cade 79, Romy, he needs to put his stamp on the game. Dirty Red's word was pathetic. The club deserves it, and nothing should take away how bad that performance and our attitude was. LFC Tigers' word was furious. Mac Tiger said shafted and also emotional. We couldn't meet the mental challenge. Unfortunately, not all that unfamiliar place for a West Tigers fan to be. I've got 4 one-word submissions that I'll go through in just a few moments' time, but let's go to the boys first. Steve, a one-word submission, please, after that... was it Monday? I was going to say, I might have even said Sunday. It felt like a Sunday, but Monday afternoon performance.
Oh, hi, Joel. My word is regression. And this last week could have been any week in the football season from 2022, 23, or 24. We had a midweek incident. We had a pile-on from everyone, every idiot with a microphone. Then we had followed up by a poor performance. We couldn't handle the pressure, and we just regressed. We started the season so positively, so much hope, and we lost a lot of ground on Monday afternoon.
I should add in there anyone with a microphone and or a keyboard.
And or a keyboard, except us, of course.
Correct, absolutely.
Well, maybe not Eddie. I think he can be included.
Almost all present company excluded. Gary's chimed in. What do you got for us?
Mine was 2024. So pretty much for the exact same reasons and pretty similar to Steve, is we just reverted back to last year. And it's not just the off-field stuff. The things I saw on the field yesterday were so reminiscent of what we've seen for years past, that it just feels like we're back in 2024 after that performance.
Well, another thing I could pick Steve up on is he said it felt like 22, 23, 24. It could have been 03, 08, 11, 13. Could have been any number of years in the West Tigers story. Eddie, what do you got for us?
I thought I would just encapsulate the week and the game together, Joel. I can't do it in emojis, but the emoji is red and white, so I'm going with circus, because I was out there yesterday and it felt like a circus of a week. I had to listen to Parramatta chants in the first 5 minutes. Remember, this is our home game, and typical Tigers fashion, I hear our fans during the week pumping their chest. We're going to win by 20. This is going to, dare I say it, galvanise the side. No, lose by 13 plus against the side running last.
Circus. Okay, I've got these ones, and then I'm going to revert back because you made a good point there. I've got disjointed because I thought our attack was disjointed. I've got influence, and that is that the referee had way too much influence on what was happening within that game, both for and against us. Like there were times where everything was going our way as well, but he just had way too much influence over the way that the game was going. And just on that, ref, 3 of our 4 losses this year have been under him, under Kennedy. So, yeah, I looked up the stats today. I've got to use physicality because I'm contractually obligated, but physicality, we did get somewhat bashed, I felt, by the Eels, who certainly studied the tapes and came with the right game plan to beat the West Tigers. Their ability to make those post-contact meters was quite evident. And I've got one, if I had to be pushed on what my actual word for the game was, I've just gone for day. And it was their day. It was just that kind of day where everything sort of went their way. And that's not to excuse us for our poor play and our poor performance, but in a way, it was just always going to be their day. As soon as Moses was available, as soon as Hunt was out, it just kind of felt like it was going to go their way. So I wasn't as confident as the week went on. Steve, I'm going to ask you because we're going to do it a little bit differently this time because you had the ambush event just before the game, and I really would like to know what Latu Fainu had to say, what Gerald Skelton had to say. But I'm going to ask you that question that Eddie alluded to. Like, is it a good strategy to play Parramatta at CommBank Stadium? Like, we could play them at Leichhardt or Campbelltown or somewhere else. It does tend to give them an advantage.
Yeah. Look, I think what we witnessed yesterday, part of that was what you just alluded to, Joel, where you said it was just their day. And so they were up and we weren't, and therefore their fans were up and into it and a lot more boisterous than us, right? But, so there's two parts to that. I get what the club are trying to do. I get it, like financially, to play Parramatta at Parramatta as a home game pretty much assures us of a good crowd, if not close to a sellout. And financially, it's great for us, and we have needed that recently. Yeah, and any dollars coming through the door are important. But from a macro perspective, think of the big picture. If we're going to make money, the best way to make money is to pack the ground every week and sell memberships. And we're going to do that by winning. So the argument against playing at Parramatta is we're making it harder to get 2 points in a game that perhaps should be a lot easier to get 2 points. So there's arguments both ways. I'm not going to slam the club because I get it. But playing Para at Para makes it hard to win.
It's a really difficult one for me because, like, Richo has rightly come out in the past couple of weeks and said if Campbelltown doesn't get the upgrades it's needed, that we can't play there. We had the same issue at Leichhardt last year. How do we then take a game that's potentially a 30,000 crowd and play it at a ground that is 16 or 17,000? So I get 100% where the club's coming from. The other option is take it over to ANZ, and then what are we up to? 15 home grounds for the season. So it's a really difficult spot the club is in. I don't think we can play them at CommBank. I think it was quite obvious yesterday that their supporter base sees it as a challenge. I think their team sees it as a challenge. That we're trying to claim their home ground, and I think it's something that is probably extra motivation for them as a team and for their fan base. Because they were loud yesterday. That fan base was quite loud during that game yesterday. So I don't really know what the solution is. I think the solution is hopefully Campbelltown Stadium gets the upgrade that it needs, and that can be the home ground for the vast majority of our games. Because I don't see how you can go to a 16,000, 17,000 seat stadium and play a game that should be one of the NRL's biggest drawing games of the year. Like, it's a Easter Monday game. Should be drawing a decent crowd every single year. You can't put that at Leichhardt or Campbelltown.
Yep. Okay. So it's an interesting one, isn't it? I definitely can see the argument one way and the other, but I guess a little bit tinted by the spectacle that we viewed out there. Let's go into the elephant in the room. Let's talk about Lachlan Galvin. Eddie, he has been named back in the team for this week's game against the Sharks. You've been pretty adamant that we should go performance first and trying to win games. And if Galvin is our best 5'8", one of our best halves, he should be playing. Were you surprised to see he was picked there after what happened last week?
Not really, Joel, because I think I said last week on the pod that, actions speak louder than words. And Sunday or Monday will dictate what happens here. And sure enough, we talked it up and we didn't deliver on the field. So the coach, Benji, whose future is riding on this year's results, I think has gone back and gone, well, boys, it's all well and good for you to back me, but you didn't back me up on the field, and I need to pick my best side possible if I'm going to maintain my job into the future. I don't know how he went in reserve grade, but apparently he had his usual busy sort of game. Dewey struggled at halfback. I thought the half struggled, so I wasn't overly surprised that he was named. As you know, Joel, a lot can happen in a week, whether he runs out on Sunday. I'm not 100% sure that he will. At this stage, it might be a smother to get the media off our backs for a few days. Who knows? But, yeah, we're playing a guessing game in terms of how off he is with the players and with the coach and with the staff. But all things being equal, I am of the belief that whatever's happening in 18 months or in the background, you do try and pick your best side unless it is really untenable. So I wasn't that surprised.
See, we've made this so much harder for ourselves. I'm going to sound like a broken record, but I just believe it so passionately. After that media release last week, if the club and Shane Richardson had contacted every single person in that club that draws a wage out of West Tigers and said, there's no communication, you don't say a word, nothing gets out, then we wouldn't know to this level and this depth what the players were thinking of Galvin. We wouldn't know that Galvin stood up in front of the team and we've been told, got shouted down, told to sit down. We wouldn't know any of that. And so dropping him last week would have just been as simple as we believe he needs a week away from the spotlight. And that's quite passable. And he's had that week away, and this week would have been we can bring him back. No one would know about it. So there would be all this conjecture. Because we let it get out and let the feelings of individuals be known, we opened the doors to this massive problem that we've had since that moment of being accused of bullying and club in disarray, etc., etc. It all could have been avoided. And then what we could have done, or what the club could have done, was mediate like crazy, get them all in a room and say, look, if we're going to do any good this year, we need our best 17, and try to work through it without the external pressure that has absolutely crippled us. That's where it all went wrong, and that's what's made it so much harder. And like Braithen Astor, I reckon, has been had the most sensible voice in this whole debate at the moment. And he said it tonight. He said, I don't know how this is going to work at the moment. I don't know how these guys are going to get in the training field together after the pressure that's been put on over this last week.
Steve, I agree with some of what you said, but there's parts of it I disagree with. I think you're right that we didn't need the players coming out and posting the way they did. I think I said it at the time that just opened up a window for the Moses camp to walk straight into and try and jump out of and get him out of the club. The issue is, I don't think this goes away regardless of that happening. Isaac Moses is hell-bent on getting Lockie out of this club as soon as possible. So he has latched on to what happened with those social media posts, but it would have been something else. There's no doubt in my mind, and yes, I 100% agree that the players posting what they did have made it easier for him to do that. But there's no doubt in my mind that he would have been angling to get him out anyway. He'd already released stories to the paper saying that Benji Marshall couldn't coach. That was just the next step. I think he would have went down the mental health route anyway. That's his playbook. He did it with Mitchell Moses when he got him out of the Tigers to go to Parramatta back whenever that was. So this isn't something, regardless of what happened with those players, even though I agree with you that it's made the situation worse, this is not something that I think you could sit down and mediate away and try and get through to the end of the season, because Isaac Moses isn't going to allow that. He wants him out now. I think he's already got him lined up somewhere to go as soon as he gets that release. And I think he's expecting to get that release in the next couple of weeks, because that's what's happened in the past. That's been what he does in the past. And I 100% believe he thinks we'll have him out of the club within 2 weeks.
I'm just wondering, Joel, and I don't know the answer to this, but you guys were pretty strong last week, and I sort of was fairly supportive of Richo coming out, because it got, I don't know, it sort of united the fan base, but I'm wondering a week on whether it was worth it, because I go a step further back than the social media. That press conference he released on Monday was fairly inflammatory, and that then led to Isaac Moses releasing the article about Benji, and the flow-on effects. It damaged the reputation of Galvin. It hurt Benji Marshall, players in social media. The manager's then taken things to another level. So I'm just wondering, I know Gary said he would have tried this and that, but why could Richard have just said, all right, you don't want to be here in 18 months. List of grievances, I don't want to hear them. We're just going to settle this at the end of the year. Maybe we can change his mind at the end of the year. Because like Steve said, the damage has been done now. The last week's been absolutely catastrophic. And whatever happened, like if he doesn't play this week and we lose, or if he does play and he plays poorly and it just has a shocker, it's going to blow up again. So I don't know. Maybe he's a genius, Rich. He knows far more than I do, but I'm wondering if it was all worth it handling it the way he did.
I think that those stories about Benji were coming out regardless. Why do you show up that meeting with a list of complaints about Benji Marshall? Like, if you're just saying, oh, we don't want to see a contract, he's leaving at the end of 2026, you don't need to give a reason.
Correct.
You don't need to go into that meeting.
I'm just saying, I think Richo's response played into his hands.
Look, I think he felt that story was going to come. I think that was being set up from that moment when they walked in with that list. Like, I don't even know why you'd be keeping that list. Like, that list is being kept to be used against you at some point. He's been shown that list, or, well, the two parts of it that he apparently listened to, and then he's thought, I've got to get out in front of this. How we get out in front of this is say that he won't be here. That gives us control of the story. Because otherwise, we all know what Isaac Moses is like. We've seen it in the past. A lot of where we are now comes from what happened when he ripped the Tedesco, Moses and Woods out of the club. So the club's well aware, and we're not the only club he's done it to. So I just think it was a plan from Richo to get in front of the story and not let Isaac Moses dictate the story. Because if he dictates the story, like, you're just going to be on the back foot. Because he's just going to leak to his media mates. We saw it last week, some of the clowns that were coming out defending him last week. That would have been happening regardless. So I do think that it was an inflammatory statement, but that was his attempt to get in front of the story.
When you've got a playing group that buys in, this is always the yin to that yang, is that there is more emotion than maybe what we've had in the past, where probably most of us would say for some significant portions or seasons in the West Tigers history, we've had players that we've complained about don't care about the club, and then we've got these guys that have bought in and that are emotional about the club, and we've all said this is really wonderful to see. And then they get a perceived slight. I don't know if perceived, or they do get slighted because it was played out in the media. This is often the reaction that you're going to get. This is one of their own, basically trying to manipulate the system, manipulate the club to get what they want, and knifing their coach, who's sort of the central figure in all of this in the back. Like, it's inexcusable. I would never pick him at first grade again. I just think the way it's been handled. But I'm going to ask you, Eddie and Steve, who've sort of taken a little bit of the counterbalance or the counter argument here. And I know what you're saying, Steve, that you're saying that there should have been a memo out there. But really, what did the club do wrong? Like, we got in front of it, we put the statement out, we said he's not going to be at the club, we're not going to make any further comment on it. And I know that the two players said and did a couple of posts that were obviously in the environment that we're in, they were read a certain way, and it wasn't the smartest thing to do. But, I don't know how there can be any criticism, really, of the way that the club's handled it. Personally, we didn't not play him. We put him in New South Wales Cup. I thought Benji handled it really well. I just don't understand what they could have done differently.
Just what I said, Joel. Just what I said. I agree with you. I think we've ticked most boxes. I think the club mostly has handled it well, apart from the football game. We'll talk about that later.
That's what they should have done, Steve. They should have won yesterday.
Yeah, but see that's a consequence of the week, right? And this is my point. The only thing that I think they did wrong was they opened a gate and allowed a tsunami of criticism to come in, right? Headed by this absolute garbage of bullying by Moses, right? And this goes, but we gave him the opportunity to strike. Now, I don't know whether you're right or wrong, Gary, about he would have struck anyway. Probably right. That's all conjecture. All I can have an opinion.
Well, I can only go on the history of what he's done in the past.
Well, but in this instance, it's conjecture, and all I've made my point on is what I saw. Now, I'm the same as Eddie. I'm not going to sit here all night and bag Richo. I think he's doing an absolutely fantastic job, but I think they got that bit wrong. The rest of it, they got pretty right, but because of all that, they were not prepared to play a football game on Monday. And the look at 6 o'clock, like I was out there, well, we're all out there, I think. I've never seen the aggression in the crowd that I saw from Tigers, or that I saw on Monday, right? It was fever pitched. It was nuts, right? And I get it, but that's due to the intensity of the week, and the week didn't necessarily have to be that intense.
I do have to say, Steve, there were some supporters sitting not very far away from us yesterday who should be ashamed of their behaviour that I saw yesterday.
Absolutely.
It was disgusting. I don't know whether that had to do with what happened last week, but yeah, it was not a good look from some supporters yesterday.
So what happened there? Sorry, guys, this is going on a tangent, but just so people understand what happened. Where we sit, we're right above. We're right above the Parramatta, or the away team bench, right? And there was an ongoing verbal, like for half the game,
with multiple players.
Yeah, between players on the bench and 2 or 3, 4 blokes. And the seats there, you're right there, right? You're within touching distance of these blokes. Now the Parramatta players and the guys that were looking after the Parramatta players should have pulled them away, but it was ongoing and it was nasty and it was bad.
I'm surprised you guys could hear that from behind the glass with your champagne flute in your hand and your oysters and.
Mate, once the prawns run out, I go outside.
Right.
Yeah, I only heard because they were disrupting me from eating my prawns.
We hope you're enjoying this edition of the West Tigers podcast. Don't forget, if you agree or disagree, we'd love to hear your comments and thoughts on the West Tigers podcast forum. It's free to join and you can contribute directly to the podcast on the forum. Just head to westtigerspodcast.com.au/forum. We hope to see you there soon.
Well, let's stay on that sort of same vein. Eddie, we've re-picked Galvin back in the side. It's going to be at Leichhardt. What kind of reception is he going to face at Leichhardt? I can imagine it's going to be, I get the feeling it's going to be a boo-a-thon.
Yeah, well, I heard someone today on a show say at least the Tigers are at home. And I thought, this is the worst place possible to come back, Leichhardt Oval. I mean, the best thing would be to bring him back at Magic Round, and you're away for the week in Brisbane, and no one cares up there. But Leichhardt Ovals would be a furnace. And I'm not going to tell fans how to react, but they'll react in their own way. Some will boo him and heckle him from the get-go. And some, probably like me, will just... What's the point? I just don't see the value in booing him. We're trying to win a game. We're trying to not be an embarrassment to this competition again, and we're trying to get off the bottom. So what is the point of booing your own player during the game, whatever you think of him? So, but like I said, fans pay their money. They can do whatever they like within the, as long as they don't run on the field and tackle him or anything like that. But yeah, it's the worst possible place to bring him back, because he'll know. Leichhardt Oval, there's no hiding there. Like players, Luke Brooks and stuff, who played 10 years for us and played his heart out, whatever you thought of him, he got booed there last year.
Yeah, 100% there'll be boos come Sunday. I'm like you, Eddie. I won't be booing him. I disagree with his actions over the past week. I'm disappointed that he is playing this weekend. But I don't see a lot of other options. I don't think we can ever play Adam Dewey in the halves again after what we saw yesterday. So I don't really know what that other option is unless you're going to move Appy out into the halves. So I see why they have picked him this weekend. I do understand why they've picked him this weekend. But for me, I would only be picking him until Latu's fit and firing ready to go, because... How do you have someone in your side who has at least provided legal papers to the club? Like that's a really strange situation, and how that plays out, it's just I don't know. I don't know how this works, even to play a game this Sunday with him in the team. So I don't know. It's an odd situation.
So my emotional reaction, and I'm prone to a little bit of emotion, my emotional reaction was, screw him, I never want to see him play in the club colours again. All right? And I'll admit to that. That was my initial reaction. When I think about it and try to have a little bit of maturity about what I'm thinking, I tend to go towards Eddie, which is strange. Eddie and maturity. We're trying to win. We're trying to win a football game. We're trying to capitalise on what's been a good start to the season. We weren't able to do it last week. We probably need to play our best 17. But here's my thing. What happens in the first 20 minutes? We're attacking their line. He grubbers through, chases the grubber, dives on the ball and scores a try. Tigers up 4-0. Lachlan Galvin, individual effort. Do 12 other blokes race over, claws out, jump all over him like it has been over the last 6 weeks? Or is it going to be blokes turning around going back to their positions? I don't know. Right? And that was my point about they've got to mediate like crazy. They've got to get these guys in a headspace where they can actually train together and play together with purpose and enthusiasm. I don't know how they do it.
I'm trying to look at things sort of clinically, Joel, without the emotion of it. And I don't know, like the ironic thing is, I remember this 2016 when Mitchell Moses' drama unfolded. He played a home game against the Sharks as well. And he pretty much, tanked that game, for want of a better word. Like, he didn't have a go. That was a Saturday night game. So, like, I think the thinking behind it's got to be that he's going to be here for 18 months. Otherwise, why would you pick him? If he's going to be here for another 3 or 4 weeks, why would you pick him? I look at the way the Mitchell Moses saga played out, and we gave him up for nothing to Parramatta. Why would we do that this year? Why would we give Parramatta? You watched that other halfback play yesterday, play really well for them. Why would you give him Lachlan Galvin mid-season? So, like most things, it'll be determined by the result. If they come out and he has a blinder and he doesn't care about the boos and the side wins, I'd pick him again the following week ahead of Latu Finu. But if they come out and lose and he misses a couple of I remember There was a game at Leichhardt where Ben Teo, Chris Hyington had an absolute go at him, and the crowd got on his back. And so it could be 5 times worse this week. So, like I said, probably not the ideal ground to bring him back for me. But if the kid's what people says he is, and he doesn't care about some others, and he's in his own little world, he might thrive on it.
Well, and I guess his start is going to be really important. If he has a poor start to the game personally, that's when things might get really tough. Like if instead of putting that kick through that Steve spoke about, he puts it through and it runs dead, then
there's a good chance that'll happen.
Yeah, like it has happened a few times this year, but it has happened the other way as well. So it's just a bizarre situation with how much angst has been around this club in the last week to now try and get them all on the field together. I don't think anyone knows the answer to it. So, and I do agree with you, Ed. If he can come out and have a blinder on the weekend and show he's going to really put in, then yeah, of course you continue with him. But I don't know if that's going to happen. The one positive I will say on that is he had something like 21 runs for over 200 metres for the Magpies on yesterday.
So Gary, he comes out and has a blinder, right? He comes out and runs 200 metres again and plays really well, and everything's right with the world. And Ladu Faina is just in the last week thinking he's finally going to get the number 6 and get his chance. What do you do with him?
Mate, I'm 100% making room for Latu Faina. Like
do you give him 6 though? Do you give him 6?
Quite possibly, yeah. I moved Lockie to lock. I don't have to keep him happy anymore. I don't have to set it up so I'm pandering to having him in his preferred position if it means I can get Latu in there as well. So I know Latu still hasn't shown a lot, but he's had a lot of reps coming through, and if that's the one important part about getting Latu some game time, is there's still question marks around him developing into an NRL half, but he hasn't had enough game time. And I know this season we can still do something this season, but it's probably now's the time to be working that out, because if we don't have Galvin next year and we're going into next season with Latu still being untested in that role, then that's an issue. If Latu goes out there and doesn't quite make it how I think he will and how a lot of people think he will, then we need to be looking at other options for next year. So there's things that we need to look at, and I know this season's most important right now, but we still need to be setting our club up for the next 2, 3, 4 years without locking in our plans. Apparently that's why he told us so early he wasn't going to re-sign, is so we can set up our future plans.
Oh, wasn't that
nice
of
him?
him?
To start doing that.
What a saint.
Joel?
What a saint. Wasn't that nice of him?
No, it was very nice of him to let us know nice and early that Benji can't coach.
So wonderfully professional and considerate. I've seen this club from before it was even founded. Like, I've studied it for a long, long time, and I do tend to know how it operates. And I remember back a couple of years ago, I think it was Declan and Eddie had a bet about wearing a dress on the pod. I think, do you remember? And I
don't remember what it was about, but
No.
I do remember who did.
Well, I'm not saying that I'm going to wear a dress on the pod, but I'd be pretty confident in making a bet that he won't see the end of May. He'll be gone in May from the West Tigers, Lachlan Galvin. That's my feeling, having watched this club since day one.
I wouldn't be betting against you.
Yeah.
This changes every day, but I think he'll still be here. I think Richo's going to dig his heels in. If he's going to Parramatta, it's obvious now. Bulldogs pulled out.
100%.
And it was disgraceful what Jason Rolls... Like, if he'd done that in America, that's just tampering. And that's
Well, it is against the anti-tampering
There was
rules.
there's a coach been pulled out for a year for stuff like that, and he was just laughing about it. It's obvious they've been talking, maybe not directly with Rolls, but it's obvious the deal's been done there. And I think Shane Richardson's going to go, you know what? No chance. We've got a player on our books, a good player, in a key position for $300,000 for the next 18 months. You can play here, mate.
Yeah, but he's also suing the club, and man, that would be under Richo's skin, big time.
Yeah, but that's not confirmed. That could just be a threat, Joel.
Yeah.
Lee Hadjibentelis threatened to sue people every 2 weeks. Didn't necessarily happen. It could just be a threat from his camp. Let's see how it plays out. But, would you say, Joel, let's just let him go in May to Parramatta?
No. A deal will be done. It'll become untenable, and a deal will be done. Something will come up, and it'll happen in May.
I think you made a good point, though, there, Eddie, about NFL. I think you were talking about, yeah? We're all quite rightly, I think, very quick to laud Volandis and Abdo and just say they're doing this marvellous job because, they got us through COVID amazingly, and then they've introduced Las Vegas, which has been a success. And so we all sing their praises pretty quickly, but in a way it hides the cracks a little bit. We've had this perennial problem with the bunker that is just ongoing. We've got this perennial problem of inconsistent application of the rules by the officials that is just becoming farcical. We've got a situation now where no one's allowed to say anything about officiating or you get fined in any instance, in any situation. Right? And now we've got a coach in Riles come out and smugly look down the camera and basically tell the world without saying it that they're all in for Moses and they got him. Not Moses, Galvin, and they got him, right? And the NRL are dead silent. Now, this is really serious. They are too quiet on the important issues that piss the fans off week after week after week. They do nothing about it. And they just expect the fans, and, well, I suppose I've got to say, the fans are falling into line, because I think last weekend was the greatest number of people at games in any week for NRL ever. Right? Something like that. So I suppose they can sit there quietly, but it's just crazy. What Parramatta have been doing and not hiding it, it's just not on. And they need to investigate it, and they need to do something about it and stop it.
I would say Parramatta will end up getting their karma. They'll go 40 years without winning a premiership, but I think that's already got them. But karma is going to get that club one day in some form, because they've got, it's a mostly, as I said last time, mostly dishonourable game, and they're down the bottom scale when it comes to honour, that mob. And speaking of people that are down the bottom scale of honour, the journalists. So the Tumith and Matamua story that was printed as gospel on Sunday night, I think it was Sunday night or Monday night, it may have been. I've got lost track because of the extra day, public holidays. It turned out it's complete nonsense, Gary. Eddie and I used to talk about the journalists a little bit on the earlier editions of the pod. What you have to remember every time you read one of those Fox Sports stories, Telly stories, Sydney Morning Herald stories, is there are agendas, there are clicks, there is manipulation, and everything should be read and taken with a grain of salt.
Yeah, my biggest criticism of the journalists is, you hear, such and such is a West Tigers journalist, or such and such is affiliated with Isaac Moses. That's the problem.
Yeah.
Journalists are meant to be impartial. They're meant to report the facts. And we have guys who are pushing the barrow of whoever feeds them the best stories or whoever they get their information from. And they use that to further their career. But then they act as their mouthpiece. There's no doubt and I did watch a little bit of NRL 360 last week, even though I usually don't, just because of all the drama that was going on. Didn't watch it tonight or last night. I won't be going back to it. But I saw David Riccio on it last week, and you might as well have just had Isaac Moses sitting there.
Yeah, mouthpiece.
I thought that was disgusting behaviour from a journalist to just go there and speak pretty much on behalf of the person who the story's about. That's not how it's meant to be done. That our sport deserves better than people just pushing other people's agendas in the media. And to be honest, I'm over it. That's why I don't engage with most NRL media. It's why I don't watch shows like NRL 360 or any of the Fox shows or any of the Channel 9 shows. because you're just getting whatever side of the story they want you to hear that benefits them and benefits the people they're affiliated to. And I've had enough of it. I'd much rather listen to fans talk about football now, because at least then you're getting the view of people who while being biased around their club and devoted towards their club, you get a bit more genuine view of it than some story that's coming from a manager via a journalist. It's just wrong.
Yeah, I agree with that. But it goes further than journalists, Joel. Like, what about players? Like Aaron Woods. He's a mouthpiece for Isaac Moses. Benny Elias was the same. Like, that was pathetic what both of them had to say, but they're just looking after their mate. Like, what's the point even listening to them? Because it's just, Isaac's told him to say that, I'll say that. And people think you can't see through that. Like, give me a spell.
Yeah, it's just another thing that's frustrating about the game, because a lot of people who are the people that aren't as invested in it as maybe we are, they read the headlines, they hear these stories, they pick up on these narratives and believe it because they're really not on the inner circle of it, and it gains traction, Gary.
And that player one, Eddie, is a really good point, because I've heard Cameron Smith talk about it a number of times, and I did catch a little bit of a highlight from not NRL 360, from Channel 9's Footy 100% or whatever it's actually called. And I didn't realise that he had been managed by Isaac Moses most of his career. And he was the only one speaking on that side of it. Like, you don't know those connections. Like, even players, unless you're Declan, you don't know who every player is managed by. So you don't know what angle their story's coming from. And it's just, I don't know. It's
exhausting.
It's exhausting.
Yeah.
It's just, that's why I almost didn't come on here tonight, because I'm just tired from it all.
We haven't joined the dots here because Eddie's sort of pro Galvin and all of this. So I'm wondering if Eddie's got himself a manager in the last couple of weeks. You know
what I am, Joel? I'm pro winning, and we didn't win on the weekend, so I've got the shits about that.
Well, that leads me into a good question. I'm going to throw it to Steve first, but I'd all like you to chime in on this if you've got something to say. Steve Stretton, why can't West Tigers ever win the big games, the big events? You know, when there's a lead up, there's something on the line, there's something, we tend to turn up and go to water. Why is that?
Well, I think historically, in the last few seasons, it's because we're just not good enough. And whenever the pressure builds and the expectation builds, our skill level is not good enough to go out there and perform with that pressure on us. That's what I think. You know, like, you know, you want to find out the mark of someone, put them under a bit of pressure. Right? So whenever we get pressure put on us, we fold because we actually haven't been good enough to handle that pressure and perform at the same time. We're much better performing when no one's really watching us. Okay. This year I thought it was different. This year I thought, because I've still been nervous. I've been saying to you guys, I'm nervous before the game because I've been waiting for the old Tigers to re-emerge. You know, the team that can't handle the pressure, the team that does cave, and I hadn't seen it. And I did see it. I saw the old Tigers re-emerge this last weekend, but that was extenuating circumstances. Right? We just were not prepared. We were not ready to handle that occasion. We weren't up for it mentally at all for that game. But can I throw something else in there? And I hope I'm not taking it away from everyone else commenting. But I've got a question too. Mitchell Moses tears us apart every single time we play Parramatta. It is obvious, good luck to him because it gets him up. It's obvious that he still has an axe to grind with the club, that he hates the club, probably hates the fans. It's all right, we hate you too. But he gets up and he uses it and he performs. $1 million player, and he played like $1 million player. My question is, why wasn't our game plan devised to put pressure under Mitchell Moses? Why weren't we pressuring his kick? Why weren't we up in his face every time he was going to kick that ball? He's just coming back from a foot injury, right? Surely we should have been in his face for every single kick. Why weren't we running our big forwards at him all game, tiring him out? How long has it been since he played? Why didn't we make him make 50 tackles and tie the bloke out so that his attacking play, he was going to be stuffed and couldn't do anything. Why didn't we have men marking up on him? He was the one setting up all that play for the outside when they were beating us on the outside. And we were letting him get those good passes away because we weren't pressurising him. Now, I just want to know, what was our game plan and why wasn't that obvious? Because to me, just a bum who sits in the stands, right, I could see that was an obvious way to approach this match.
Steve, by asking you a question, I think you answered Joel's. So, my opinion on it is, yes, my one word was 2024, but I think yesterday was a little bit different to 2024 in the reasons why we crumbled yesterday. So, in the past, I think it's definitely been skill. I think it's been, at times we showed up without the required attitude and effort. I don't think either of those issues were really the problem yesterday. I think we've got quite a skillful team. We've been scoring plenty of points. We actually scored close to enough points yesterday to win that game. But the issue for me this year, and I don't like to say it, is coaching. I think there was the majority of games we've played this year, it's been really hard to see what our game plan is, what we're going out there and trying to achieve, how we're trying to beat the opposition and target the opposition's weaknesses. And you pinpointed a great one, Steve. Mitchell Moses being back should have been worked over all game. So at the moment, I think Benji Marshall is taking a lot of his cues from Wayne Bennett as coach. And Wayne Bennett isn't a big X and O's coach. He's a man manager, and he allows the players to kind of develop the game plan and play how they want to play. Now, I think Benji's attempting to do that. And for me, it comes into, that also goes into why Jerome hasn't been that standout player we're looking for. Because if you look at sides like Melbourne play, you look at sides like Penrith play, every player knows where they've got to be at a specific point of a play. That's totally non-existent in our side. So you've got a guy who's transitioning into the halves, who you're trying to develop as a halfback, but he's playing in an unstructured sort of team. And how do you develop those skills, especially when you're an unstructured player yourself? How do you develop those skills when one time Sam Fainu may hit a gap one way, and then the very next play he's hitting it another way? These are the issues I think we're having. We do not look like a team that, you listen to Cooper Cronk, and I can't stand Cooper Cronk talk and Cameron Smith talk, and it's all about players being in the exact same spot, the exact right spot, knowing what to do based on what the defender does in front of them, because they practice it over and over and over and over in the off-season. It doesn't look like we do that. And for me, the reason why this year we couldn't stand up to a big occasion yesterday, because the pressure was on, and when the pressure's on, that's when those structures are really important. That's when you fall back onto those structures, that thing you've done 1,000 times at training. And I don't think I'm seeing that. I don't think we're doing that as a team.
Yeah.
And sorry, Eddie, go for it.
No. I've never been a rugby league coach, and those guys know 100 times more than me in terms of tactics and strategy. But I've sat behind the post a couple of times this year, and it was obvious yesterday that you could see what Parramatta were trying to achieve. And like Gary said, you could see a couple of times when they got us, they had men in motion, they knew exactly where they had to be, there was shape to their attack. And when we were playing against 11 at one point yesterday, and we were just shoveling the ball side to side, and it was just
and not straightening.
What's going on? And then there are other sets. I've listened to a couple of other things this week from other Tigers fans, and I agree with them, where they sort of say, when we're in the opposition 20, we're sort of setting up for one play. And then the next two plays are just settlers back to the middle. And it's just the good sides will have 3 or 4 or 5 shots in a set, even in their own half. We saw Parramatta from the kickoff. That was a brilliant play by them. Identify that, Dewey was a bit slow or lazy on the kick chase, and they made 90 metres off it. But to me, it's infuriating me watching our attack, because it just looks like it's sort of, you rely on a bit of brilliance, which was from Appy to May early, And then there's, a little bit of, it's just a bit all over the place. It doesn't look like we're working the points on the field or identifying defenders at Parramatta. Like Tuilagi was back in the side. He's known as a weak defender yesterday, but it seemed like Mitchell Moses was the one identifying that we want to go at Brent Naden or we want to go at Adam Dewey. They've both changed positions during the week, whereas we sort of would just look like making it up as we go.
Yeah, and I think it's really crucial. And I was really pleased a couple of weeks ago when we lost to the Broncos, because I could see a game plan in that game. I couldn't see one yesterday. I couldn't. The only thing that I can identify that we were trying to do yesterday is we've spoken heaps about how we don't hold up that sliding defence, and early we're turning the ball back inside to our second rowers. So we had Sam hitting that line on the inside, and someone else might have been Seafath doing it on the other side. That was an attempt to hold up those defenders later in the game because they're worried about the player coming back inside. But even when we got later in the game, we didn't have those players running those lines back inside to actually get the defence thinking about them. We were just kind of shoveling it, as Eddie said, out and running ourselves out of room against 11 men. So while there was an attempt at a game plan there, it wasn't finalised because we didn't continue with that kind of shape later in the game to take advantage of the work that we did early. And it's just really hard. And look, I will say the only thing I can take out of yesterday is we were really bad. But I think if Addo-Carr doesn't take that intercept, we probably win that game.
We'll win the game, yeah.
And not just take the intercept, that effort from Addo-Carr to actually just knock that ball down. I think if he just knocks that ball down and we get another set, I think we probably go down and score anyway. But the fact that he not only knocked it down, but he had a second go and grabbed it before it hit the ground, I think that was probably the key defining moment of that game. I think if we execute that final pass properly, and it was a great effort from Addo-Carr as a football fan, that was a great piece of football. But I think if we had have executed that, we actually probably win that game from that point. So that's the only benefit I can take out of it. Despite being poor, we were an Addo-Carr intercept away from actually getting out of that mess, in my opinion.
I think we lost the battle of emotions. Like the Eels just seemed to rattle us with their play and their good post-contact meters, and they did play a good physical game with good line speed. But I just think they won the mental battle. They just seemed to get under our skin and bring out all our vulnerabilities, all of the emotion that was there. Yesterday. The ill discipline cost us, and adding to that frustration was the referee who was over-refereeing, and that adds to the frustration because he didn't just let the game roll. It was just everything was ruled and adjudicated on, and it was really frustrating, and it ruined the spectacle. Like I know I'm sitting there not enjoying the experience, but it's just if you were an unbiased person watching that, you'd be like, can't this guy just put the whistle away? It was just constant, Steve.
When everything's going against you, you opened the pod, Joel, by saying that. You're saying it was just one of those days where everything went against us, right? And everything went for Paramount. When you're having one of those games out there, like, because we never gave up with belief. How far behind were we? 16 or something at one stage? And it looked to me that the team still believed they could come back, right?
Correct.
So at no point did we hang our heads in that game.
No, they didn't give up, and maybe in the past they would have.
Yeah, that's right. But Gary mentioned the Addo-Carr thing. That was when $1 million player, or like an experienced leader in the club, stood up and did what had to be done to win the game for them. Well, Mitchell Moses hasn't played for months and months. Just came out and played like he should be the New South Wales halfback, really. The way he played on Monday. We needed our experienced leaders, our state of origin players, to play at the same level, to do the Addo-Carr moment, to do the Mitchell Moses dominance and get our team around the paddock. And it's not happening. And I know people want to kill me for saying it, but I'm still waiting to see it. I don't doubt his leadership qualities off the field. I don't doubt what he's bringing to the club. But Jerome Luai has got to start showing that leadership by winning football games for us on the field. I'm not seeing it. Amazing talent, done amazing things in his career, but I'm not seeing it.
Sort of went under the radar last week. I asked Gary, we actually moved him to 6, and I thought maybe that's just, someone said, it's symbolic, he wants to wear Benji's number, but the more I watch him, the more I think, geez, I hope Latu's a 7, because I know he played 7 for Penrith last year, but he had Isaiah Yeo controlling the middle of the field last year, and he still played, I thought, a similar style of football in terms of running across and dropping players under and, doing some short kicks. But, we mentioned coaching. I don't want to hammer Benji, but I thought that the Eel discipline, sadly, it's a reflection of him. That might sound really harsh, but unfortunately, when you have a week like that and your team is really ill-disciplined, and Taruva especially cost us a couple of times yesterday, that's a worry for me going forward.
Just one thing I was going to say is in terms of Benji and emotional, I felt, because I was watching it on TV, I wasn't at the game, I watched it on TV, and they kept panning to him, and he did look emotional in that second half. Like, in that first 20 minutes, it looked, you generally get to know, we've known Benji a long time, and he's normally a pretty cool kind of customer. He really did actually look stressed and emotional, Gary. So, I think maybe it all got to them. I think the occasion sort of overawed them. And that's sort of the other side of, as I said earlier, when you've got a team that's bonding through emotion and talking about emotions and backing each other and trying to bond like that, then there becomes an emotional component in it. And sometimes that can boil over a little bit.
Look, to kind of answer everyone's point that they've just made, I think the reason why Jerome's having a little bit of a struggle with that transition, like we bought a 6 with the intention of turning him into a 7. We made a bet that we could transition him from 6 to 7. So we knew we weren't buying a finished product number 7 when we signed him. The issue is we're not supporting him in that transition.
Yeah.
By not having all that stuff I spoke about your structures in attack and the shape that you're running and having players in the right position, what's happening to him is he's going to the line and he's looking to the player outside him and he's not where he expects him to be. So he then steps back inside and that's when all hell breaks loose. That's when he gets really unstructured and I'll be honest with you, he gets panicked. And as a club and as a coaching staff, we've got to support him in that transition because we made the decision that we could turn him from a 6 into a 7. And at the moment, we're not providing the scaffold around him to do it. And I know the argument's going to be, we paid him $1.3 million. We shouldn't have to do that. But I think the club should have been aware at the time that he'd spent most of his time playing as a 6. And Eddie's right, his time at Penrith, when he was playing in the 7, he had Yo there to kind of support him. So he was playing wide of the ruck. Now, a couple of things we could have done to help him is got to get a ball-playing lock.
Yeah.
To allow him to push a little bit wider and play a little bit wider. Because even Nathan Cleary at Penrith plays a little bit wider. He's not first receiver every single play. And Penrith's best attacking plays are when Nathan Cleary's being pushed wider and Yo's in that first receiver role. So we haven't set that up to support him. We haven't looked at what his structure was like at Penrith and tried to put something in place to support that. We haven't looked at the players he had playing around him and how they're always Penrith, like they just know what's going on, where they're meant to be, and even though they've been really poor, are able to fall back into some really good structures on the weekend and got that win on the weekend. So we haven't set him up with that. And it's going to sound like I am absolutely bashing Benji, and I don't want to do that because I'll get back to not wanting to bash him, but the ill discipline we saw on the weekend, it wasn't just Taruva, it was Bird's time on the field, and I think he actually, I don't know, he had ice on his ankle after the game, so maybe he was pulled because of injury, but he was skating on thin ice the whole time he was out there. He was playing full of emotion, and he was doing dumb, stuff constantly. Alex Seyfarth, again, was kind of being a bit of a hothead and doing dumb stuff. But Taruva's play was incredibly ill-disciplined, and he needs to be pulled into line over that. And his behaviour last week was ill-disciplined through the week, off the field. So that's an issue we need to get sorted, because everyone's been full of raps for Taruva all season because he's come over and set standards. Well, I think he's let those standards down in the past week, both on and off the field. I don't want to bag Benji, as I said, because I do think he is a developing coach. I do think there's potential there as a coach, especially around, for the most part, up until last week. I think the man management stuff and his press conference last Thursday, probably up until Thursday, I think everything he's shown this year has been an improvement on last year. But I do think he needs to get more involved in setting game plans for our side and getting players into the right positions to support the players that we have.
I don't want to seem like I'm defending the Galvin camp here, Joel, but like we're talking about attack here. Some of the best coaches, don't they have a specific attack coach? Like, does Ivan Cleary really run the attack? I think Peter Wallace runs the attack at Penrith, and I think Wayne Bennett has Ben Hornby run the attack at South. So I think that was one of the perceived criticisms, that we're employing perhaps coaches that are not experienced enough to run attack and defence. Because if you look at the NFL, head coaches are managers, and they employ the best attacking and defensive coordinators around them to make them look really good. So I don't know if, I don't know who runs our attack, if it's Brett Hodgson or John Morris. Probably Brett Hodgson. But yeah, he's got a bit of work to do at the moment in time, because I'm sure, points-wise, we're not doing too bad. We're probably scoring 20 points a game, but it's coming off kicks or it's coming off an individual bit of brilliance. We just look really clunky most of the game.
But I think that comes back to, because we're not really having trouble scoring points. And you're right, those couple of tries were off good kicks. Luai put those couple of kicks through for tries. It's, if you were to look at the team and we're talking after a loss, which is always a little bit different. But if you were to look at the team in a completely unbiased way, you would say the thing that's missing from our team is definitely a little more creativity and linking from our lock, a little more thrust from our back row, and a proper game managing halfback. I don't think you can win a premiership if you haven't got somebody who can be Mitch Moses is probably never going to do it, but probably a bad example. But somebody who could take the game by the scruff of the neck, execute the game plan, and really be that man. And I don't think Luai, no disrespect to him, I just don't think that's him. It's not the way. And Benji really, to a degree, never was as well. He got better as he got older, but it wasn't really in his DNA like a Josh Reynolds or an Alan Langer or a Ricky Stewart or whoever you want to name that's made their name as a top class number 7, Steve.
Oh, that's pretty much was going to be my point, Joel. So if you go and look at Benji's highlight reel, a lot of his best moments would have sat outside the structure of what the team were doing at the time. Like that was his absolute strength, right? He could just pick the moment and basically do anything. Luckily, what we had back then,
Scott Prince
in Benji's heyday, not just Prince. Yes, Prince, absolutely. But we had players that could anticipate and get in the right spot. Like he'd throw this miraculous pass and someone was there to grab it, right? So we had that as well. So that's, I suppose, my point is I would say the other thing that we're falling down on, look, we are scoring points, right? So maybe we're overreacting, but it's our execution too. Gary just mentioned then, the Luai will skip across field and look to give a pass and the guy's not there. Our execution, I still look at our set plays that we do put on, and the timing, we get the timing wrong at least 50% of the time. And I don't know, from my experience, that comes down to, doing it over and over and over again at training until we get it right, And so I don't know, maybe we're not doing that because we're now round 7, round 8. We should be getting that we should be getting that fluency in our attack that we're all saying is not there yet.
You'd think the Penrith boys would sort of have it sorted, given the system that they've been in for so long, like that they'd be saying we need to practice this more, something along those lines, Gary.
Yeah, to me, it doesn't look like they've practiced it 1,000, 2,000 times, which I think if you have a look at the Storm and the plays they run and Penrith as well, they're running those plays all off season, and that's off season work. That's not really something you can fix in the week to week grind of the NRL. That's all what your preseason's for. You develop that structure, you develop those plays during your preseason, and you may tweak them during the season, or what Penrith seems to do is they'll just keep a couple in the bag for when they hit those high pressure games and they have something new to show. And I just don't know that we've done that. And Steve's right. Benji Marshall was 100% at his best in unstructured football. But to play unstructured football, you need structured football to support it. And I think that's our biggest issue at the moment is we don't have that structured football to support it. If you have a look, the player that does the most link work for us is Terrell May. And he's really only doing that in that first 20 minutes where I think he lacks, and I think he knows he lacks a little bit more impact. So you'll see him passing a couple of times yesterday. He passed Alex Toll and he gets in there and he links to the halves. So to be honest, he's probably our best bet at doing that. But then you kind of lose the other important part of his game. So it's a really, really difficult one. And I do want to say, in saying that I think we need a ball player at lock, that's not to take anything away from Alex Toll, because I think he's having a fantastic season. I thought he was quite strong again yesterday. I was really hard on him last year because I thought he was really poor last year. But I think he's really stood up this year, and he's actually making post-contact meters. He was making post-contact meters yesterday. Haven't looked at any of the stats because I couldn't be bothered after that game yesterday. But I think you'd have to be right up there in our post-contact meters yesterday. I thought he was quite strong.
Yes, I'd really like to just move on from that Eels game, if that's all right. Just consign it to history.
Well, can't we talk about it for an hour or more, John?
No, that's all right. I would like to go and ask Steve to just elaborate further. And Gary, you did the interviewing. The boys, Latu Fainu, Jarrell Skelton at the Ambush event. Looks like there was very, very well attended edition of the Ambush, which was great to see. What did the boys talk about? Did they let any cat out of the bag in regards to anything, or give us hope?
Look, I don't think we got a lot of exclusives out of them. I will say the crowd was very keen at that point for Latu to move into the 6 jersey, because that was mentioned quite a bit by people in the audience. What I will say, and I think it's probably the key information that we got from them, was their return dates from injury. So Jarrell Skelton is out for 5 weeks. I think that's a massive loss. I think we lose so much without him in that side. And I'd like to say if he played yesterday, his go forward early in sets probably makes a big difference in that game. So that was quite disappointing to hear. And Latu in the next 2 weeks seems that Benji's been saying it. He said it yesterday. He was still in a splint yesterday. So how true that is. And he walked up to me and shook my hand with his left hand instead of his right hand. So he's still not using that hand to shake hands. But the big thing to ask when you speak to Joel about yesterday, the big thing to ask Steve when you speak to him about yesterday, Joel, is, like, he's a star now. He was interviewed on the big screen by Bo Ryan. So I think that's the key takeaway we need to get some information on.
Oh, look, I'm sorry, but I was just thinking, I was just dreaming of Bo Ryan there. And I was thinking that he's probably at home tonight too, saying, I was on the big screen interviewing Steve Stratton too. I'm sure he's saying that as well. No, look, mate, we had an awesome event. I don't think it's going over the top by saying it's our best event ever. It was certainly our most well attended. We'd have had close to 150 people in that bar, and it was amazing. It was amazing because the gates opened at 2:30, and we needed to kick off straight away because Giles Skelton and Ladu Fanu were coming to us at 2:45. That was the only time they had available. So we really had to sort of get moving. And I've never seen this, but there were people, without us prompting them, walking through the gates and making a beeline to the ambush event. They knew about it, and within 10 minutes of gates opening, we had 100 people in the bar area, and it just kept growing. It kept growing to standing room only, to the point of being uncomfortably standing room only. And it was an awesome event, and we were given great exposure, and I've got to thank West Tigers for that, one, for giving us the guests that they've given us, but two, for giving us that opportunity to present the ambush on the big screen and be interviewed and let people hear a little bit about it. And hopefully it's just going from strength to strength.
Yeah, I was really impressed with the turnout yesterday. Steve said 150, but I think we gave away 170 something tickets in the Lucky Door prize, Steve.
Oh, right, okay.
So
I didn't know that.
Yeah, so the room was shockers. Almost too many people in there, and like it was standing room only, and it was standing room only after about 2 minutes of the gates opening. So we had Mari and Rachel out the front trying to usher people in. They didn't even get time to speak to people. They were just handing out the Lucky Door prize tickets constantly. So for everyone who did come along yesterday, thanks a lot for coming along. I spoke to quite a few listeners who came along to the event yesterday because I heard about it on the pod. So thank you for coming along, and to all those that I didn't get to speak to. Though I do have to question one thing that happened yesterday. Nick has a fan. Someone actually came along and wanted to beat Nick, and somehow this person ends up winning the Lucky Door prize. So I'm calling right here that Nick has rigged the Lucky Door prize to reward his one and only fan.
I was going to ask the question, is there any correlation between the big numbers at the turnout and Nick making his debut? But that would have been a silly question.
I can tell you that Nick has already made that correlation.
Yeah,
He's made it very clear.
Boosted by one.
Yeah. Well, what's more interesting, though, is that Eddie was at the ground, but was an ocean. Like we had it.
Well, too negative. Apparently, I'm not. I don't think the boys would want me up on stage because I might be too negative for the crowd. So,
Eddie, I love having you on stage every time we can get you. I may give you a hard time, but
I did say to Nick he's got to give me my, which I've still got to pay for, by the way, my West Tigers podcast shirt this Sunday. Because I was going to get there early, Joel. I know we've been going for too long anyway, but I don't think there's a game on before first grade. Like, that's terrible.
That's
crazy.
A
Sunday afternoon game at Leichhardt, 4 o'clock kickoff.
Yep.
And West Magpies are playing at Lidcombe, so I don't know who makes that call, but that's...
Doesn't that just give you more time at the pub, mate?
Yeah, it does, but that's not necessarily a good thing.
It's insane. And the reason why Eddie didn't appear, just officially, is because Isaac Moses, his manager, was looking for an appearance fee, and we're not comfortable with paying appearance fees. Sorry, Eddie. So
do we pay one for him to be on here?
Yeah. Well, I'm expecting an invoice. So yeah. Thank you, boys. We'll look forward to the midweek edition, this is kind of the midweek edition, but the other midweek edition, the later in the week midweek edition. Thank you, guys.
Cheers.
Thanks, boys.